Hello everyone, I'm Anthony, the Eclectic Chef. Welcome back to my kitchen. Well, today we're going to be making what I call a use-up recipe, where the answer to what's for dinner is what's in the cupboard. And tonight we're going to make a Boeuf Bourguignon. Now, I've got some nice choice chuck. The mushrooms, I'm going to use up some King Oyster mushrooms. I have some creamy mushrooms I could use, but these oysters need to be used up. They'll actually work very well in this recipe because they stay very meaty and they'll be a great foil to the beef. And we have everything else, a bit of red wine, a bit of brandy, a bit of Dashi. It's the eclectic version, that's why there's Dashi as well as King Oyster mushrooms. And we'll have a very, very tasty beef dish. Now, I'm going to cook this in the Instant Pot, which you know I use a lot because I love the Instant Pot. It's going to be an hour's cooking versus 3 hours on the stove top. It's getting kind of warm out here now, 90s today, and I just don't really want to warm up the kitchen if I don't have to. So, with that, let's get cooking and I'll show you what our ingredients are. Okay, so here are our main ingredients, and I'll deal with the liquid additions in a minute. Let's first take a look over here at the big plate. We've got 3 rashers of smoked bacon, 1 3/4 pounds of choice chuck, cut relatively coarse, and 2 King Oyster mushrooms, which I've cut to pieces about the same size as the beef. These are very resilient mushrooms. In fact, they're almost a proxy for meat in a number of dishes. We'll talk about that later next week. And I think they'll be interesting in this eclectic iteration of Boeuf Bourguignon. But here we have our vegetables. I'm using shallots. They have a real depth of flavour that onions don't have. It comes from them having a much higher carbohydrate content than onions typically. Couple of small carrots chopped up, teaspoon and a half freshly ground black pepper, 4 garlic cloves which we're going to crush, a few sprigs of fresh thyme from our garden. We'll pull these out once the cooking's done, and 2 fresh bay leaves from our garden to add just a little bit more savouriness. We're going to dredge this beef in flour and cook it in the fat from these bacon lardons. We use dredged flour to cover the meat in the Instant Pot, frankly because the Instant Pot, unlike stovetop cooking or oven cooking, does not reduce sauces. So we do need to thicken it a little bit. I don't like using cornstarch. It's too distinctive when you add it at the end of cooking. So using almost a roux, I suppose, at the start of the cooking works much better for me in practice. I've been doing it for a while and I'd suggest it to you too. So in a moment we'll get this beef cooking and then we'll look at the liquid ingredients. So here we've cooked the bacon lardons. A little bit of olive oil, they've rendered up a lot of their fat, and we will now brown the flour dredged chuck. Here we go folks with our liquid ingredients from right to left. We have 4 tablespoons of brandy. I use Presidente for cooking. I find it works very well. Next we have 1 teaspoon of red boat fish sauce. A lot of people traditionally put a couple of anchovy fillets in Boeuf Bourguignon, but I don't see the sense of us opening a tin when I'm not going to use the others. 1/3 of a cup my homemade Dashi, which we just keep in the fridge, and a cup of decent red wine. I'm using Kirkland's Chianti, which was left over from last night's dinner. It actually is a very decent wine, if not as dry and robust as what you'd normally see in Boeuf Bourguignon, but I'm sure it will work well. We're just going to add these, clamp down the top of the Instant Pot and let her rip for an hour. Okay, it's probably a good time to talk to you about a couple of the components in our liquid additions today. On the left is my tub of homemade dashi. That's kombu, katsuobushi and shiitakes. Why, you ask, Anthony, does the eclectic chef put dashi in so many things? Because I understand the chemistry of umami and how to absolutely enhance flavours and tastes. A lot of people here who talk about umami have really no idea what they're talking about. And in fact, I'm going to do a couple of segments on umami. It will take 2 segments to cover them all. On the right, you'll see Red Boat fish sauce. This is now the only fish sauce I use. This isn't sponsored by them, by the way, and I bought these off Amazon with my good money. On the left, it's the standard Red Boat, which is what I use today, and on the right is the high protein Red Boat. That's really the top of the line. You can put your finger in this and taste it, by the way. If you can't afford this, just use a regular old fish sauce. I'll put a link to the website Fermentology. An excellent article where I read about Red Boat. Just as an aside, you know, a lot of people who talk about garum, the Roman fish sauce, on YouTube are really talking about liquamen. I learned that from this article because the author's a culinary historian and she really knows what she's talking about. If I were to offer you garum today, you probably wouldn't eat it or take it. Most people use liquamen. This Red Boat is probably the closest you're getting to high quality Roman liquamen. Anyway, I just wanted to show these 2 things to you. They're really regular additions for me. Look, as I said before, if you can't afford Red Boat, regular Vietnamese or Thai fish sauce will do. And you know, in some recipes, if the vinegar doesn't clash, Worcestershire sauce works very well. By the way, I know my Worcestershire sauce because if the train I took to get to school came into Shrub Hill in Worcester, I walked past the factory, and by the way, yes, it stinks. But you do have to mind the vinegar and the spices in Liam Perrin's Worcestershire sauce because it does change the flavour of dishes. Very Indian Empire inspired, but anyway, that's just my little treatise on these 2 little pieces of liquid that we added that I consider pretty essential. So here's our Boeuf Bourguignon done. I've had a taste. I'll tell you the depth of savouriness in the sauce, gravy if you want, is extreme. Very, very tasty. The meat is very tender, and what I want you to look at are these pieces of King Oyster mushroom, which have stayed together very well. They're very soft, but they still have a nice bite and contrast very well with the meat. This is strongly recommended. As I say, it was a what have you on hand. Speaks to the Instant Pot, and I really recommend you to look at why we use the flour dredging to thicken sauces in the Instant Pot. But for that, here it is. I'm going to have this for my dinner, and it really is delicious. I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like. It really helps our channel.